Hi, this is Dr. Justin Marchegiani, and today's talk is going to be on how to create a healthy meal. So essentially, every single meal should have a combination of three macronutrients: proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Now, we're just taking fully into account that quality is really important. A lot of people just talk about macronutrients like proteins, fats, and carbs and do not put into or do not emphasize the fact that quality of the nutrients are very important. So obviously organic, chemical-free, pesticide-free, free-range, GMO-free, all these things are really important present in these macronutrients. The big thing is I'm going to emphasize macronutrients that also don't have a lot of toxins in them. A lot of toxins such as phytates, oxalates, various fiber compounds, things that have trypsin inhibitors or enzyme blocking inhibitor compounds can also affect digestion and your ability to break down and utilize the proteins and nutrients for food. The next is we also want to make sure the foods are anti-inflammatory. So typically we have three prostaglandin or eicosanoid pathways. Two are anti-inflammatory and one is pro-inflammatory. So the arachidonic acid pathway or prostaglandin 2 is a pro-inflammatory pathway, and prostaglandin 1 and 3 are anti-inflammatory pathways. So I'm going to be talking about various proteins and fats that are going to stimulate the anti-inflammatory 1 and 3 pathways versus the refined vegetable oils, GMO vegetable oils that are stimulating the prostaglandin 2 pathway. So let's get started here. So we have proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. So imagine this as your plate at the dinner table. Now we're going to have protein and fats typically come together when you eat, unless you're eating protein powders or unless you're eating rabbit protein. They have rabbit starvation up in winterous areas because the rabbits are literally so lean they develop rabbit starvation or this protein hyper excess with no fats. And you actually need fatty acids to be able to help absorb proteins and amino acids, so you can develop rabbit starvation without enough fat. But typically in Mother Nature, you're going to have protein and fat together. So I'm a big fan of at least making half your meal, about half your plate, protein and fat. So I'm going to put P here in black, and then we're going to put F here to symbolize fat. Now again, this ratio may change. If you are very active or you evolve closer to the equator, you may be able to use more carbohydrate for fuel, so you may actually see yourself maybe 3/4 to 60% carbohydrates. But for myself, if you're relatively lean or you're not exercising too much and you're living a pretty good lifestyle, typically about half protein, half fat, and that can change based upon your activity levels, your genetics, whether you have an autoimmune condition or not. But again, we have carbohydrates on this side. So we have protein and fat on one side and carbs on this side. And typically, we have a couple of different kinds of carbohydrate. We actually have starchy carbohydrate. This would come in the form of white potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams, tubers, bananas, etc. And then we have non-starchy carbohydrate. Now, I'm a big fan of non-starchy varieties because they tend to be higher in nutrition, but they don't have all the sugar that you may get with the starchy carbohydrate. So this tends to be a really good place to get all the nutrients and all these anti-cancer compounds in the non-starchy variety. Now, again, if you're more active, you may need some of the starchy carbohydrates. So this is kind of dependent upon your activity level as well as your genetic predispositions, and also assuming that you are healthy. If you're diabetic or you're metabolic syndrome, if your waist is greater than 40 inches for a male or greater than 35 inches for a female, you may want to think about really keeping those starchy carbs down, if not out of your diet completely. The next type of carbohydrates we have high glycemic. I'm going to put GI for glycemic index, and low glycemic or low GI. Now there's some overlap here, but typically some of our fruits may be high glycemic fruits. This could be pineapple, this could be banana, papayas, dates, mangoes, maybe more of your tropical fruits. Now people that evolve more in a tropical environment, they may have the genetic, ethnic, and biochemical individuality to process those carbohydrates at a higher level. Now, if you love more wintry environment, you're not going to have those type of fruits, so you may be a little bit more sensitive to it, may not be able to eat as much. Now we have low glycemic. Low glycemic may be your berries, it may be your apples, like a green apple, things like that. Usually below about a 40 glycemic index are going to be your berries and your apples, and maybe more of your Granny Smith apples and such. It kind of gives you a good idea of what your low glycemic fruit may be. So myself, I typically try to consume more non-starchy and more low glycemic fruit. If I'm more active, then I will do a little bit more starch. I'll do some sweet potatoes or yams. And again, out of the starchy ones, the sweet potatoes are actually lower on the glycemic index than your white potatoes would be. So just kind of keep that in mind. And typically all of my carbohydrates are still gluten-free. So I typically try to consume gluten-free carbohydrates just because we're trying to keep up with the fact that our goal is to be anti-inflammatory, nutrient-dense, and low in toxins. And gluten-free foods tend to do that. These are all gluten-free here. So proteins, fats, carbohydrates, from there you can create your meal. So if you're looking at proteins, it could be fish, it could be turkey, it could be grass-fed meat, it could be lamb, it could be good quality steak or beef. When we look at our fats, typically protein and fats are connected. So if we're looking at beef, it may be a 76% grass-fed beef. It may be a dark meat of a turkey leg or a chicken thigh, or if it's a chicken breast, we leave the skin on. Or if it's a leaner meat like a chicken breast, maybe we put a scoop of coconut oil on there, or we cut up a half to a whole avocado and put it on there, or we have a handful of nuts or almond butter after the meal to get that extra fat. And again, we can obviously cook with fat too. So good healthy fats, maybe coconut oil or ghee. If you're autoimmune, you may want to avoid the grass-fed butter and use something like ghee without the casein protein in there. Also nuts, it could be good quality bacon fat, duck tallow, macadamia nut oil, avocado oil, those are pretty good fats. It could be olive oil, maybe using olive oil as a salad dressing. So that kind of gives you a good idea with proteins and fats. And then your carbohydrates, we kind of already went over them. Our starchy carbs are going to be our sweet potato, our yams, various tubers, squashes, white potato. And again, our non-starchy ones are going to be our spinach. It's going to be our salad mix, our broccoli, our kale, our asparagus, our cauliflower, and spinach, etc. And then our high glycemic fruits or foods are going to be obviously our white potatoes are going to be higher glycemic index. Obviously sugar in general. And again, we're keeping this list gluten-free here just in case. And again, low glycemic are going to be our berries, our passion fruit, and our Granny Smith apples, our grapefruit, as well as our lemon and limes. And I'll put a list on screen so everyone can see that. So I hope this video was really helpful. From here, you should be able to create an anti-inflammatory, nutrient-dense, low-toxin meal. Start pushing your body into an anti-inflammatory state, which is essentially your body building up faster than you're breaking down. So if you have a hormonal issue, a digestive problem, if you're in chronic pain, if you have fatigue or depression or a mood issue, this is going to be the kind of diet template-wise, maybe a couple tweaks regarding macronutrients, but this is the kind of diet that you want to be on to help bring yourself back to optimal health. For more information about myself, feel free to visit the information bar below. Click on the links. If you need a consultation regarding what tweaks you can make in your diet and what lab tests to order, feel free to reach out and I will be able to help you out. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.